Hi Maria in class, I'm Domenico and this is my entry for the video commentary for activity points. Over the semester, I have conducted a few questions over the readings, the lectures, and the slideshows that I would love to ask. And these questions are going to be like spitfire questions, but they're broken down into categories. And I wrote down my questions on my computer, so if I'm not looking at the screen, that's where I'm looking. Let's just get started because I have a lot of questions. My first category is cohabitation. And my first question is, with cohabitation becoming so popular nowadays, what will the rate of marriage be in 20 years? Will children of cohabitating parents become cohabitating themselves, or will they stray away from the idea and get married? As research gets more involved in children and families that cohabitate instead of marriage, are the children that are from cohabitating families treated more differently than a child in marriage? And I'm not asking that of like inside the family and what goes on inside the house. I was asking from the peers and the neighborhood and how that affects the child. In 20 years, do you believe the views on cohabitation will be different and more acceptable? Or do you think more traditional views will evolve through the generations? I love the LeClaire and Bear scandal. If they never came out and addressed what was going on, do you think the traditional views would still be in place today? My next category is the millennials, and the millennials are children that were born in the early 1980s to the early 2000s, so that would consider myself, my peers, people about 10 years older than me and about 6 years younger than me. My first question is, what would the generation of millennials be like if they did not have helicopter parents or had parents that snowplowed their problems away? The term helicopter parents means parents that are overbearing to their child, overprotective, do everything for their child because they're the closest with the child. And parents that snowplow the problems away mean that they will solve the problem for themselves and not have the child solve it for them. So the child never really learns how to problem solve and in situations that are real life situations. So how would the generation be if they didn't have those kinds of people? Do you think helicopter parent children will hover their children the same way their parents did? And that could just be like a lifestyle thing. So children who become parents, they might not want to do what their parents did because they thought they were overbearing, so they want to be more free-spirited and let the kid do what they want to do. Or they're going to be just like their parents and overprotect their child because that's what worked for them and that's made them who they are today. What challenges do children with overprotective parents face today that maybe children with more lenient parents don't have so much of a problem with? That's in a job situation or in a real world problem situation where they don't know how to solve it because their parents never taught them how or never allowed them to solve the problem themselves. And so as they got older, they expected that someone was going to solve the problem for them, or they were going to get someone to help them with this problem instead of figuring it out themselves. And that can affect you in jobs and in like your lifestyle in general. We also in class we learned about swimmers and treaders, and that's kind of how you are, and you could be a swimmer or a treader. With the terms swimmers and treaders, do you think generations in the future will evolve into a swimmer generation or a treader generation, or do you think it will be equally split like it is today? In class we watched a movie called Two Spirits, and so I had two questions about that. One of the questions is, why are people so afraid of two spirits? I mean, I guess maybe in the culture that we are in today, it depends on how you're grown up, but we are more accepting of people that are different than you and have sexual orientation different than you or dress different than you. So why were people so afraid of that? And what would the American culture be like if we believed the same traditions as the Navajos? That would be really interesting to see. A good chunk of the class was about gender roles and how splitting of the housework would be, and what if the father was more involved in the child's life and things like that. So I have a couple questions about that. How would life be different if the woman and the man switched roles and that was socially acceptable? So if a woman went to work and the man stayed at home and he was the house cleaner, he was like the housewife but the house husband, and if the woman brought home the money. How would the housework be separated? how would the stay-at-home father, or would the stay-at-home father be required to do more housework as like a woman would be expected to do if she was at home? So would the man be would he have to accept the fact that he has to clean and cook and take care of the child and do the housewife jobs as a man? Or would the woman have to come home and still do all that stuff and the man would sit at home? According to the Mad Men episode, The Marriage of Figaro, how accurate and realistic would the lifestyle portrayed in the episode compare to the real lifestyle in the 1960s? Does the audience that watches the show that lived in the 1960s agree with this realistic lifestyle or disagree? My final question is, do you think in the future housework will be more equally separated now that two working parents is more acceptable and is more common in our generation now? And then the last topic that I like to write questions about is gay rights. And of course, gay rights is something that's popping right now and is something really important in the lifestyle. And so it's changing over time. And I'm so excited to see how it portrays in the future. So some of my questions are, how long will the fight for equality in gay marriage and gay rights go on for? And I don't know, no one can answer that right now. It's going to be something that you have to see in the future. But of course, that's a question that everyone's asking about. And so also, do you think every state in the country will agree to gay marriage? Or will some states stick to the traditional views? I would love to see how that affects the country as a whole. Like, so if 48 states decide that they want to go for gay rights and 2 of those states decide that they're against it, I would love to see how that portrays into the society. And my last question is, without movements like the Stonewall riots and Harvey Milk running for supervisor, do you think equality for homosexuals would be where it is today? That's something so interesting, and some of these questions are hard to answer, and there is no right or wrong answer because you can ask all the different people. But those are the questions that I asked, and I hope that was okay. And I loved the class, and I learned so much from it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask these questions, and hope to see you by the end of the semester.